What I just watched was absolutely overdue. Douglas Murray just went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he called him out to his face, basically saying, why are you platforming Jew haters and Israel haters? Why are you platforming people that believe that Hitler wasn't such a bad guy? People like Ian Carroll and Daryl Cooper, etc. These types of people that are so dishonest. They're such dishonest actors. And he says that the right, in general, is overplaying its hand. It's going from just, asking questions to, actually, World War II, we were the bad guys. Oh, actually, Israel committed a terrorist attack with the USS Liberty, etc. And all these, weird conspiracy theories that are going around right now on Twitter and other places. So check out this clip of Douglas Murray calling out Joe Rogan.
Douglas, can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
Since the war in Israel began, and since the war in Ukraine began, you've had quite a lot of people who are very against both in different ways.
Yes.
Do you think you've had enough people on who are supportive of either war?
I don't know that word enough, if that's a good word.
Let's say enough people who are on the side of Israel instead of wild critics.
Well, I've had a few. I mean, I believe God Sad is on the side of Israel.
For sure.
Jordan is on the side of Israel.
Mike Baker, Coleman Hughes.
Yeah.
Coleman did it for like 20 minutes, so it wasn't why he was here.
No, I mean, none of them is why they're here. It's a good question.
Do you think you've tilted one way?
Me personally?
No, just with the guests you've had.
The guests? Yeah, probably more tilted towards the idea that perhaps the way they've done it is barbaric.
Mm-hmm. But why do you think that is? Just out of interest. I'm just interested in your selection of guests because you're like the world's number one podcast.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think about it that way. I just think I'd like to talk to this person.
But can I just... sorry, it's your show, but
sure.
If you're going to interview historians of the conflict, or historians in general, why would you get somebody like Ian Carroll or...
Yeah, but Ian Carroll, I didn't bring him on for that purpose. I brought him on because I want to find out, how does one get involved in the whole conspiracy theory business? Because his whole thing is just conspiracies.
Sure.
But
do you have any... there's been a tilt in the conversation, both conversations, in the last couple of years, and it's largely to do with people who have appointed themselves experts, who are not experts.
You mean like Ian? I don't think he appoints himself an expert in anything.
Who's that other dude who thinks he's an expert on Churchill?
Daryl Cooper does not think he's an expert.
In fact, I think it's everybody else is always calling him an expert, and he's like, I'm just a history guy.
Have you ever absorbed any of his material? Have you ever consumed any of his podcasts or anything like that?
I tried.
Yeah?
It's pretty hard to listen to somebody who says, I don't know what I'm talking about, but now I'm going to talk. Or I don't know about this. Or I'm not capable of debating this historian, but I'm going to just tell you what I think.
Yeah, but that's not exactly what Daryl was saying. I mean, Daryl's point of view, however you feel about this, what Daryl's saying is he doesn't really like doing debates. He likes to do long format stuff where he can really explain his position.
If you throw a lot of shit out there, there's some point at which I'm just raising questions is not a valid thing. Mm-hmm. You're not raising questions. You're not asking questions. You're telling people something.
Do you think Daryl's doing that?
I think there's a whole bunch of guys doing that. I think Dave is doing that, very obviously. Dave's a comedian, but he's now mainly talking about Israel. He also said on here that he wasn't anti-Semitic until the Holocaust. There were no speeches of Hitler's in the 1930s.
No, he said he was not public about it.
He said he was downplaying it to win. He said there was a period where he was downplaying it to win over popular support in Germany. It was his argument.
There is no historian of World War II who thinks that Hitler was downplaying anti-Semitism in the 1930s. That was what he was doing. He wrote a book about it in the 1920s. He got to power on it, and he grew his power on the back of it. The idea that you can argue that in the 1930s, Adolf Hitler was downplaying the anti-Semitism, there's no historian who would agree with that. So why would you throw out the idea that in the 1930s, Hitler was not being anti-Semitic in public? That was what he was doing in public. He announces to the German parliament what he wants to do. So when you're throwing out claims like he was keeping it down in the 1930s, first of all, what are you doing? And secondly, why?
Okay. I mean, I think that it's kind of hard because I don't even know exactly what Daryl's point on that was. And so I'm not really in a position to argue what he was saying there. I don't think you're giving him the most charitable interpretation.
I don't need to give him the most charitable interpretation to be able to see what he's doing.
I think you're strawmanning him, I should say.
Look, anyone can look up what he said on this show and others, what these two guys in particular have said on repeated podcasts with both of you. It's an attempt to downplay Hitler and always to do down Churchill.
I don't think...
This is the shtick of these guys. They've decided it's edgy and funny, and I think this is very, very interesting and also very dangerous, because we live in an era now that the right has got some mojo back in America. We saw years of crazy left overreach, where they tried to make us all say the craziest things. And completely predictably, there are now figures on the right playing with really dark and ugly stuff on their side.
I agree
and
with
they
that.
are mainstreaming
I don't
this,
think
and I think it's partly being mainstreamed by the two people I just described. And both of you have kept speaking to these people, and you don't get on the historians who know about this.
Wow. Douglas Murray is very courageous, going on Joe Rogan's own show and exposing him and calling him out for the absolute obsessiveness over Israel, the platforming of people that are so dishonest on purpose, and the idea that Joe Rogan platformed Daryl Cooper or Ian Carroll because he wanted to figure out what conspiracy theorists tend to think. No, you don't want to know how they got into it. You want to know what they're peddling. You want to, basically disinform your entire audience by having these people on and having them spew their hatred. My only point is, if you're going to believe something and you're going to peddle different ideas, stand behind those ideas. If you're going to say Israel is terrible and committed all these terrible acts, don't say you're asking questions. Say you actually believe that. And that is what a lot of these actors do. They try to pretend like they're not anti-Semitic and then talk about Jews 24/7. Oh, I'm not anti-Semitic, but, I just focus all my efforts on trying to delegitimize the Jewish people. I'm not anti-Semitic, but, I'm just going to focus on any time that the Jews were victims and try to reverse that narrative. And it's very scary, it's very obvious, and these people try to be slick, but it's honestly incredibly infuriating because it gaslights a lot of Jews into, engaging with them. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.